Oh, I see. Hi, I'm Jessie Draper. I run Halogen Ventures. We invest in early stage female founded consumer tech. We right now are focused on this thesis. We're on our third fund around future of family. So how do you support the family at work, at home, the physical health of the family and the financial health of the family? We are, we started out, my story is like wild and crazy and not super normal. While my dad is a VC and I'm a fourth generation venture capitalist, which I used to really shy away from sharing. Because as you guys know, am I talking? Is someone?
No, just keep on going. I'll quiet him down. Hold on.
Someone's just shouting periodically, and I'm like, what am I doing? As I'm a fourth generation venture capitalist, I think it's a really important piece of my story because I'm the first female in line, and I didn't think I could go into this industry because I was a woman, and so I made this. All I knew was VC. Truly, like growing up, I ended up thinking, okay, well, even though I grew up in Silicon Valley around all these great entrepreneurs, I'm going to go into entertainment because that is what I'm familiar with. My aunt was a successful actress, and I thought, oh, that's what women do. My mom worked incredibly hard raising 4 kids, but they say you can be what you can see. And I idolized my dad, and I traveled with my dad, and I was on this first Skype video call and all these things that were very sort of like, technology was around me constantly. I ended up going into acting like any young girl. I went to Hollywood and I started, I had some success, but I quickly learned that my heart was really in tech. And I ended up starting one of the first tech talk shows back in 2008, 2009. Let me take you back to the blogosphere before there was video content everywhere. We were one of the first companies to partner with Forbes.com and Mashable with technology video content. I know it was the first because we had Elon Musk and Eric Schmidt and all these incredible entrepreneurs on, and nobody cared. And now that would be amazing. After 2 seasons of interviewing incredible men in technology, I made an initiative to interview 50% women. And that is still what my team calls today when we started the Batwoman Signal. We were inundated with pitches from women. And because we had this media loudspeaker, they came to us. Last year, we saw 10,000 deals because there are so few women focused on investing in female founders. And so it's been a great bet for me. It's been very de-risked. But anyway, I took the show to TV. We were nominated for an Emmy. I had incredible guests like Sheryl Sandberg before she'd written Lean In and many others. If I had a fund back then, they all went public and it was fantastic. But through that show, I ended up getting this great deal flow. First, I was sourcing deals like Paperless Post and numerous others. And then I started angel investing, created a nice little track record. I ended up selling one company on the secondary market for a 26x return. When Benchmark came in, everyone else lost their money in that deal except for me. So I took that as a good win, went and raised my first fund, mostly from some of the guests on my show. We're now in fund 3. It's a much more institutional fund. And we've changed our thesis a little around this future of family because as any good VC, I look 10 to 20 years out, like, one, what is changing? What can we change? And we see big opportunity there. So more than you wanted to know, my wild and crazy convoluted story, but
I think it's a great story. Yeah,
that's it.
So tell us. So you started Halogen. How big is it right now in terms of the 2 prior funds and this fund? How much are you raising?
So we're raising 50 to 100. We've closed a little over 20. We currently have a 62 million AUM.
And you do primarily seed investing?
Yes. So we do seed, early stage. Today it's like you could call it the banana round for all I care. It's like people, a pre-seed makes me feel like it's a sad seed round, like not ready for the seed. And then you have the seed 1 because they're not ready for the, Series A. So I think seed is the safest place. We target 10% ownership. We actually have 5 unicorns in our portfolio today. And so I love speaking at events like this. So thank you so much for having me, Marty.
Sure.
because I think there is this misnomer about women-led businesses, and it's done pretty great for us. I think there's a massive deal flow opportunity. Women are looking to work with women, and we love men too. I like to say we have 70 companies. We have 70 companies. We have 4 male CEOs. 2 of those we invested in when they had a male CEO, and 2, just like stuff happens, and now we have 2 more. So we love men. I also have 3 little boys, so the joke's on me. We invest in women, and I'm raising the most empowered household of all time.
And so we talk about future of family. How do you define that?
Yeah, we look at it like, how do you support the family at work, at home, the physical health of the family? So there's some consumer healthcare in there, and then the financial health of the family through the lens of, we did this great study called our Future of Family study. And we interviewed hundreds of families across the country. We're about to redo it actually with a research firm. And we learned so many things that I hadn't anticipated. We actually went out with this fund and said, let's solve childcare because that's a massive opportunity. A lot of people came back and said, is it a big enough opportunity? I said, well, it's like $540 billion, but, challenge accepted. And we did this study and realized it's a 7.5, Future Families is a $7.5 trillion opportunity. So we look at it as, how do you, support those families at home? Some of the things we found in our study were very obvious things, like 96% of parents have childcare stressors. I'm always like, what about that other 4%? Like, do they have really great in-laws, or what does that look like? But then we also found things like they wanted more financial management tools for their families, and they wanted more, safety devices. They wanted more opportunities for activities, more education. They just wanted more options for their time, scheduling apps. So we looked at things like that. One piece of our larger pie that I'm really excited about, where we found some really unique white space, is when I started digging into childcare as a thesis, I kept hearing one of our companies, Hop Skip Drive, which is an LA-based company. It's an upfront company. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Upfront. We're co-invested with them. But it's an Uber type service for families in childcare. And the LA City foster care system reached out to them and said, hey, we need transportation for the children in the foster care system here. Are any of you guys familiar with the foster care system?
We actually work with a group called that works on foster care. It's a not-for-profit.
Perfect.
It's Connect Our Kids.
Oh, awesome.
And they have a technology that helps foster children reconnect with their families that don't know they were born. And we've connected 4,000 kids with their families.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I usually ask, because often these audiences aren't as familiar, and I think these are the audiences who should be, fostering and adopting. It's a solvable problem, foster care. It's a broken system. These kids are property of the government. No one should be property of the government. But what I learned with Hop Skip Drive is that these kids can't go to or from school or any opportunity they're given without government paid for and provided transportation. So I was volunteering at events, with with girls in the foster system, and they weren't showing up because they didn't have transportation. And so that's a massive problem. It's also a massive opportunity. This company now works with 30 states foster care systems across the country. Each of those is a $500,000 to $1 million annual account. They also have a product now that collects data on school buses, because regardless of the foster care system, kids just weren't getting to school across the country. And that was mind-blowing to me. And so they collect data now, realize some buses were overfilled, some were underfilled, and some people didn't have access to a school bus. So they now sell that data. And so this company, I just started digging into the foster care system and realizing, wow, this is really a broken system. And it's not just foster care, it's social services across the board. If you Google social services, 25 things come up. So you have foster care, adoption, support for military families, homelessness, nutritional health for infants, and the list goes on. as I'm sure all of you know, being great, business-minded individuals, no one can do 25 jobs like that well, and certainly not the United States government. We need to create the technology for them. So we have found some really interesting companies kind of within this world that hit a whole bunch of different pain points. So we have Binti that created software that now sells into 400 social service agencies. They match kids in the foster care system. They find their families. They build their families. A competitor to that would be like Deloitte and Touche being hired by the government wasting billions of dollars with a consulting firm, just trying to figure out what the problem is. And at this point, it's like, there is a solution. So I don't know why they would go with something else. It will be much cheaper. And then we have a company called Upwards that actually is also LA based, formerly called WeCare. And they just raised 21 million. And so they were just all over the news. I don't know if you guys saw anything about it, but they are the technology overlay to 66,000 in-home vetted childcare locations. So these are, a mom and pop location where maybe there'd be 6 to 12 children under the age of 6. In the United States, ideally, and by the way, I'm like really ragging on the United States. I'm a proud citizen of the United States, but I think I can solve a lot of these problems with technology. But this would be like someone starting a preschool in their home. It's much more affordable. The technology that we're invested in vets these providers, these 66,000 providers. They also have a corporate benefits program, and they also just signed an 8-figure deal with the government to offer government, to launch their government subsidies program for those living below the poverty line. Because we have failed, families with kids under the age of 6. It's unaffordable for 99% of society, and we really have to find options for affordable childcare. That's the most affordable option we have found, and we're really excited about it. So that just gives you a couple ideas around what we're investing in. We also have Baby List, which is, in this thesis that is about, it'll go public in a couple of years. It's the largest at-home baby registry. I don't know why it's at home. I guess like you could be anywhere in registering for baby stuff, but it's the largest baby registry. They're selling $1 billion of baby products. They're an amazing company. They also have a cool new product that you click and get a free breast pump, and they bill insurance for you. And that's just like flying now. So we have quite a few deals within that thesis, but that's one piece that I am so excited about because I feel like we found this opportunity where we're also solving some inefficiencies in the government.
Great. I just want to take a little break here.
Yeah.
So Los Angeles is the nexus of foster kids in the country. There's more than 50,000 foster children. California has the most, 80,000 in the country, out of about 450,000 foster kids in the country. And by the way, we worked with a lot of women-led VCs, Urban Innovation Fund. They started with us. We also worked with a couple other ones, True Wealth out of Texas. They started with us as well. A couple other ones. So we're always happy to have women-led groups here. And just to talk about regulatory environment, there's a guy who wrote a book. It's called, it's about people who aren't fluent in mathematics. So the government passed this, regulation that you had to have child safety seats for kids in cars. And that was because of kids dying, when cars are being driven. So they got the new child seats, but they did a study that said that 80% of all kids who died in cars were because they were seated on somebody's lap in the front passenger seat, right? And so you could end 80% of the deaths that way. And there's a couple of thousand kids. But today, it's mandatory for kids, I think, up to 8 years old. And there's more than 40,000 injuries a year from kids being placed in foster kids. Imagine somebody, they have those portable foster seats, the portable kids seats that they take out of a car. They put them on the island of the kitchen. And then the thing falls off the island, kid gets injured after rushing to the hospital. So it's just that, one consequence leads to another, right? So anyway,
I'd love to add on to that. It's interesting with foster care. I look at this as like there's this triangle, I call it the triangle of doom. And it's not, I should say something more optimistic, but like, we're going to solve it so it won't be doom in the end. But it's basically, you have foster care, you have incarceration, and then you have homelessness. And so like typically in communities, you know, with a lot of philanthropy and philanthropists, everyone's frustrated, especially in Los Angeles, about the homelessness. And they're just throwing money at homelessness, trying to solve it. But actually, if you solve foster care, you get 50% of the homeless off the street. And then the incarcerated today, 70 to 80% of the incarcerated today went through our foster care system. So like, that is just completely ridiculous.
If foster kids age out without family, 70% of the women have kids before they're 20 years old. And it's around 70% also end up incarcerated or on drugs. So
it's totally solvable though. And there's another company we invested in called Raza. And they are, so 30% of the workforce today has something on their criminal record. That's 1 out of 3 people in the United States. It sounds insane, but I've brought it up in rooms of 3, and very often people say, oh yeah, I had something on my criminal record. And most of these are small drug crimes, retail theft, something stupid people did when they were young, and they just haven't gotten it off their record. You know, this is a community where people have resources and could probably figure out how to get that off of their record. The majority of communities in the United States can't afford to like figure that out, don't have a lawyer, et cetera. So we're invested in this legal tech company that helps expunge criminal records, because the Walmarts of the world can't hire these people, and they want to, and they need to. 30% of our workforce, and that's going to go up to 36% by 2030 because crime is up. And, you know, it's just a really important piece. We need to encourage more people to have jobs. And I think this is a way we can do it. They charge $250 depending on what state they're in. It's $250 to $500. They expunge their criminal record, and there's so much more they can do after that to help with recidivism as well.
So just as a matter of commentary, so we do a lot of executive committees. We're just forming an executive committee for Stand Up to Cancer, which is a LA-based charity that gives about $50 million a year to different grantors in the cancer space. But we had actually been in talks with the Innocence Project about working with them. But the cost to prove somebody innocent after they've been proven guilty is more than $5 to $10 million per person. Right. So think about that. So even though they spend about $50 million a year, that's only 10 to 12 cases that they can pursue when there's more than, they have a list of 50,000 cases with about 5,000 hot ones. So so what you're trying to do, versus, people who have already been found guilty, they're in prison for whatever wrong reason. I think they have a pretty high hit rate in proving that people are jailed unjustly. It's a difficult system to go through. Yeah. But I gotta get you through this list of questions that was given. So what's your typical investment? Like, what's the size of your typical investment? And you have 10,000 deals a year. I mean, how do you possibly filter through that? Are you focused on, specific verticals? Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we're targeting 10% ownership. Right now, our check size ranges from 500,000 to 2 million for initial investment. And then 10,000 deals a year, no one can get through that. We now have a really great CRM product that we use to track them. I have an incredible team. We have a whole process we put them through. We do these great pitch days, and we'll have like 10 to 15 companies in and do quick pitches, and then we kind of like move forward. We definitely don't get through all of them, but that's just to show the opportunity. And these are women reaching out who want a female investor. I mean, that's purely the reason they're reaching out, which is kind of insane to me. And so we're seeing, and also you have to there's some good companies in there, but you really have to source thoughtfully. We go after deals as well sometimes, especially in the future of family space. I created a podcast to start getting more curated deals in that space, interviewing politicians and leaders in childcare to kind of like learn what else was needed, and some people in foster care as well.
Are you typically the lead investor or a co-investor?
We lead often, but we don't have to.
Okay. And so when we started this group back in 2000 something, early 2000s, about 80% of our deals came from outside the network. Today, maybe 10%. come from outside the network. That's because our network grew massively. But, we see great deals. I mean, we've got people have been wildly successful. What's that rate now in terms of in-network versus out-of-network deals? I mean, you said you pursue actual deals. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, in terms of
People that you know already, like
Yeah, I mean, we've done
founders that were successful before, stuff like that.
I mean, we're in an LA-based company called Metropolis, and they were a founder I'd worked with before who I knew. He had actually created a parking business, sold it, and then had this idea for this AI sort of parking technology. It's essentially paperless parking. They're all over LA and Nashville mostly, but they just raised 1.7 billion to acquire SP Plus, one of the largest publicly traded parking businesses, and they're integrating their technology across the country currently. And so that was a second-time founder who I had worked with previously. I mean, I think we're open to all shapes and sizes, and we invest in women. I say there has to be a female on the founding team, but we think about diversity of age, race, and gender. Women is our bucket, and that brings us a really unique diaspora of deal flow. We have over 50% minority-led companies, just because we went after something different.
I think I read somewhere that Hispanic women are now the largest purchasing group in the United States of consumer products.
Oh my God, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And actually, I had a firm that was focused on, women's wellness in Miami that they were doing fantastic on marketing to minorities, diverse communities, et cetera. Let me see here. So do you want to talk a little bit about, women receiving funding? I mean, I went to school, Ivy League school, and half the students were women. And I think now more than half the women in law school, more than half the students in law school are women. Doctors, same thing.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit, or? Women
receiving funding?
Yeah.
Women only get 2% of venture capital funding. We actually did a big campaign last year to show that this is across, it was called our Invest in Women campaign. And we highlighted 5 female founders in our portfolio in all different industries, from waste management to finance, to show that, women are starting companies in every industry, but they're still only getting 2% or less of VC funding. I think there are a lot of misnomers around, women getting follow-on funding, but we do deals with, we've done multiple deals with NEA, with SoftBank, with Kleiner Perkins. Like, we work with the best of the best. Andreessen. And so I think it also de-risks your investment significantly. There's such great data. I want to see this Latin women consumer study, but we have hundreds of studies. When I went and peddled the first fund, people were laughing me out of the room. They're like, this isn't a big enough opportunity. Why would you invest in women? They were like, thought it was hilarious. And now there's entire vehicles dedicated to this. So I feel like the wind is behind us a lot more, but some of the research states that, your company will perform better. Female investors perform better. The overall women have better sales at their businesses, better company culture and retention. Women raise half as much capital though, but often they double the return.
Right. And so, any thoughts on speed? So I was on this panel last week, and I was telling them that they have to be really fast in this market environment when you have a venture, especially technology-driven ventures, right? Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of speed to market, being able to have a product that's ready for consumption, from a consumer? I mean, do you have any thoughts about that? Because it seems to me that speed is of the essence today, more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you need to be able to move super fast. I think it's not good when it takes a long time to close the round or to get the product to market. There are so many competitors in every single category. I think, it'd be easier to answer if it was something like a specific type of company, but speed is critical.
What do you think about, do you ever cooperatively work with some of these women-led seeding groups that are out there, like women-led angel groups? There's one in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto. There's a pretty big one of women. And then there's another one, there's probably a dozen in New York City and
Yeah.
There's two big ones in Miami now. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I work with tons of them. I am very close with Golden Seed. There are so many. And I mean, we're early, we're usually first institutional money in. So we love, angel investors, we love angel networks, and we love partnering with them. I feel like that shows that these companies, have done something that people have invested in, and someone believed in them. And that's why angel investors are so incredibly important to us. So yeah, we partner with them. I also think women's angel networks are so important today. I mean, I sit on this interesting line of impact and for-profit investing. And so for so long, people were like, oh, we're going to invest in you because it's like charity. And I'm like, no, it's not charity. We are actually making enormous returns. This is a for-profit venture. And often women, we've been raised as women to give away money before investing it, because men traditionally have passed down the pocketbook. So I'd advise any of you incredible men in this room to make sure you're bringing your wives, sisters, every woman in your life, into the room, talk about money, talk about the deals, because we need those women's angel networks to educate. But women make incredible investors. They just often don't have the confidence to take the risk, and they would rather give it to charity. And there is a place for nonprofits for sure, but that's not what we're doing.
Fantastic. Yeah, question.
Is Tim Draper your father?
Yes,
You must have learned an awful lot from him.
I have. Yes.
Actually, I'll make a comment about Tim. So we have been around, we've had 700 VCs pitch our group over the years, Ron Conway, Tim, other people. And we had an interesting large VC out of Silicon Valley, and they came to us and they said, you know what, we have all of these funds that are kind of like nominally what we've been doing in the past, but this one is the highest performing one. It's like a 10x on all the other ones because it's something that's new. And I think it's really important that VCs have to be focused on what's new, because everything in venture capital goes through vintages. And once that vintage is done of like social media, sharing economy, it's just done, it's over. Nanotechnology, it's the opportunity to make outsized gains are not there anymore. You might make some good money, sure, but you're not going to buy a yacht from any of that stuff. So maybe talk about the need to be focused on something new,
Yeah.
and how that really matters. I mean, that's Tim he's focused space, right? He's always focused on what's the next new thing, because that's where the great outsized gains come from. So maybe you can talk about what's new in that sector, those sectors that you're working in.
Yeah, I mean, I think any good VC is thinking 10 to 20 years out. You can't be investing in today. I look at it like we invested in this, it was like a new tampon company like 5 or 6 years ago. And it was the first organic tampon company. We sold it to P&G. It did pretty well for us. And then first of all, we're a female focused fund. So we're pitched to every single tampon company in the entire world. But then, that's no longer interesting to me. Now we're invested in a company called Flex. It's an alternate tampon device. It's better for your body. They're flying off the shelves, doing incredibly well. They're a much later stage business now, but I think we're always kind of thinking, okay, well, what's the next iteration? I'm in an interesting space where we are looking, we have an autonomous plane company, we have this AI parking technology, but we're also, I'm always thinking ahead, but then I'm also looking at this childcare piece, and just a lot of this is still done by paper. So actually, I'm thinking we need to change this for the future, and it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
Where we intersect with the government is, the government's a bigger customer than the Fortune 500 companies combined. And so I look to the future, and childcare is changing. It can be solved, and there's massive amounts of cash to be made there. But we have to kind of solve it first. So I said, I've learned from my dad to look to the future, and we have these incredible offerings in consumer, like this Mighty Fly is this amazing autonomous plane business that we funded, and they just announced that the FAA approved. It was like the fastest approval by FAA. And I don't know if you guys have done anything in aviation, but I was an advisor for Surf Air for a long time, and that took forever to get a plane in the air. So this was very exciting. But also there's no drivers in it. So I'm always thinking to the future and how, we can look forward, but we also have to fix some of the things in a futuristic manner because we're all depending on technology so much more. I mean, it was interesting hearing about AI before. I love hearing everyone's perspective on AI. For me, I mean, every single company should be using AI as a tool. I think it's really interesting that so many people are pitching themselves as a pure AI play. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening to the Y Combinator pitches, and it was about 250 AI for manufacturing, AI for this. And I actually felt like I wouldn't necessarily invest in any of those. I would just use their technology in all of the companies that we're already seeing doing something different because that's not unique. It's a tool. We actually have a company called Tribe AI that just helps companies integrate AI. And as all of you know, I mean, machine learning and AI is not a new thing. I think it's funny that it's like blown up again. I'm just glad it's making things smarter.
Yep. I'm looking for the venture that solves DMV. Question?
Oh yeah, working on that. I have so many ideas around that.
Send me the deal.
Specific question. Yeah, I mean, you're a VC clearly with a thesis that you're working around. I've talked to a lot of early stage, growth stage CEOs, men and women, that are becoming more and more reluctant in working with VCs because kind of the value add, the loss is kind of falling away. The shared services model, I would say the advice that they're getting in helping them grow their companies. And then for women CEOs, it becomes double hard because, like you said, I mean, it's so few of their ventures are getting funded. How do you differentiate? I mean, what is it that if you're pitching in that world of, say, your 10 VCs that is pitching to a company and you're one of the 10, and how do you pitch that to a female CEO? Say, here's why you need to work with us.
We are often the first institutional capital in, so often we will be tracking the deal for a minute and we'll actually be the ones who plant our flag in the sand and then like go bring everybody else on board. In terms of what we look for, we are looking for, I mean, at this point, we've made over 100 investments in over 70 companies. And it really is like you have these lessons learned and you have this pattern recognition now. So now I'm looking for specific things from the experiences I've had in the past with working with great CEOs, as I'm sure you all make great investments. And see those patterns, some of those patterns too. I guess what I'm wanting clarification on the question, are you saying these are CEOs who no longer want to take venture capital?
No, just CEOs that are at that stage where they are looking to get a major seed round. Yesterday I was talking to somebody, they're doing an $8 million round.
Yeah.
And that it's like.
That's a pretty big.
What do you say? In this case, with Mayo was basically saying, well, I don't go out and talk to the VCs. I'm waiting for them to come to me, which has always been kind of the mantra, but where I said, no, you should be actually doing the opposite. You should be picking the VC that you think is going to be the most synergistic for what you do.
Yeah.
But
it makes a difference.
At seed, you have to go out there for sure. Like you need to go out there and be meeting with, all of the investors. They aren't going to just know about you necessarily. Is he like a proven operator?
Yeah. And he's got about 20-30% of his round subscribed already.
Yeah, amazing. So then he can kind of pick who he wants to work with. So are you asking how I'm winning deals?
No, specifically how you approach that with female CEOs, how you differentiate what you're doing with female CEOs.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. We are, we're an early stage seed fund. We have great expertise and operators within the consumer space. Because I come from media and my partner comes from media, we are really, really great. Like our superpower is PR, marketing, go-to-market strategy, and partnerships. And so we'll literally work with the business. We've been entire marketing arms of our businesses. This company, Squad App, which sold to Twitter before all the madness, just in the beginning of COVID, they didn't have a marketing department. And so we basically operated as that. They had done this great deal with Snapchat at the time. And so we got that out there, put together a whole PR strategy, announced it, did a whole bunch of work marketing wise for them. And then a couple of months later, they had all this inbound acquisition offers, and Twitter ended up acquiring them.
And I'm sorry, because we're out of time, but I think the way I like to think about it is that venture capitalists looks like a deal and they like it even more when they think it can evolve into a platform, right? Like I saw some really great deals last week and I said, one or two of these could be a platform. They could be so much more than just what they are today, right? And I think when an entrepreneur goes to VC, they're also saying, well, what kind of platform does that VC have? Like, who invests in them upstream, downstream, et cetera. And I bet you that Jessie probably has an amazing platform that we haven't even delved into of people who invest later rounds in her stuff,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And she probably, and not only that, but then the institutional investors are also looking to invest in some, or look at Jessie's deals too, because they're saying, oh, great, they're coming out of a tried and true source, right? So, I mean, so it all, what I've learned over the years is that all these groups reinforce each other.
Definitely.
So
Well, thank you so much for having me.
fantastic.
My email is jessie@halogenvc.com. We are raising our third fund right now if you want to learn any more about it. Excuse me, Halogen, Jessie, JESSE @halogenvc.com. And we're in the middle. We've closed a little over 20 million already, and we're off to the races. So
Fantastic. And we'll send it out to the group in general and the follow-up email in a couple of days. So thanks so much.